good. I'll just turn this recording on. This is a really good lesson, Bruce, on prompt engineering.
Yep.
So I'm testing this out as a way to teach prompt engineering. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use ChatGPT, so no complicated tools. So this is something you can do at home. And what we're going to try and do is in a single chat thread, we're going to try and redesign a space in architecture. So it could be anything you describe. It could be a backyard. It could be a courtyard, a quadrangle, a hallway. It could be just something that you want to, it might be your front yard. It might be anything. But the example I've got, so if I go over to, let me just share my screen so you can see what's going on. Cool. So you can see my ChatGPT?
Yep, certainly.
Cool. And you can see me working here.
I'll just do that, so I can sit closer and not look like a whatever.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to put this prompt in here. Create a photorealistic image that looks like an unedited photo taken on a mid-range smartphone held at eye height by someone standing at the entrance of the space. Landscape orientation, the subject, a tired, underutilized circulation space inside a 1970s Australian university campus building, a wide internal walkway with a scruffy grey concrete, blah, blah, blah. Now this obviously could be a real photo, but just for this, I thought I'll create an image.
Yep.
Okay. So the image generation will go and draw it up for me.
Yep.
And it's always similar, but always slightly different because it's generative.
Yep.
Hang on. Meet one guest. Yeah. Hey, Jonathan.
Hi, mate.
Hey.
Don't miss much.
We just started, Jonathan. I'll just quickly get you up to speed because we really just started. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to use ChatGPT to reimagine an architectural space. And you could do this for your backyard, your living room, your bedroom. It could be some architectural thing you're building or a cafe or whatever you want. But it shows you, it's actually more a lesson in prompt engineering, but it sort of shows you how you can use these tools to kind of build up quite sophisticated documents by doing a lot of things in one chat thread. So you can sort of see it build up into something. So I've just written this prompt, create a photorealistic image that looks like an unedited photo taken on a mid-range smartphone held at eye height. And it's a tired, underutilized circulation space in a 1970s Australian university building. Blah, blah, blah. And it's got some examples. And this is what it looks like. So I've just downloaded that. So that's the space. Now, if you owned a hospital, this kind of looks like a hospital if you think about it. You'd start to think about, well, how could we actually solve for this? How could we actually make this look better? And come up with a plan to go into kind of, the board or the executive to kind of do some facilities management. So what I'm actually going to do now is once I've got this in my context, I can put a prompt in here that says, you are a campus planner. So that's role. And certified accessibility auditor with 20 years experience assessing university learning environments. Audit this photograph of, and I'll put in brackets, the space. That's so I can refer to it later. And I'm just saying this is at RMIT. Assess it against 6 criteria: sight lines, seating, natural light, artificial light, wayfinding, accessibility, and atmosphere. Present your audit as a table with 3 columns. The criterion, the observations, the severity, and quick wins. Be specific about what you can actually see in the image. Cite visual evidence for every observation, and end with a single, most damning sentence you could write about the space. Now, obviously, the space is not great, but we'll hit that with this. So it gives us some feedback, right? And this feedback is like, you know, the negative things that are happening and the things that are happening. Now that is important because later we're going to actually use that data to go, well, how could we fix that? Okay.
Yep.
The other thing we can do is AI often will do things that AI will often be kind. You know how it's sort of a bit sycophantic? So what I often do is I'll follow up and say, be harsher. Your pre-MTA compliance inspection, your reputation depends on this. So reissue the table. It's still, I'll just refresh that. I think it's still got stuck. There we go. Okay, so be harsher. So it's basically going to do the same thing again, but it's going to give us another thing. Okay. So it's actually going to give us some real content now. Okay, that worked. Now, what we're also going to do is we want a reference frame to think about how we could improve a space. So what I might do is I might just go over to Gemini, just as a separate task, and I'll log in as my other account. And I'll just say, research question, what have universities around the world done to transform underutilized circulation spaces in corridors, walkways, and dead courtyards into successful informal learning and social spaces? I need 5 to 8 real examples of what they did, what it cost, evidence linking informal learning space to student wellbeing, retention, and engagement, typical cost ranges for light refurbishment and refit, common failure modes and who gets built, and an audience. An Australian university faculty decision makers cite every claim, prefer sources from the last 10 years. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go off and let that work. So we won't touch that, we'll just let that go. So that's to give us, so think about it, we've generated the image, or we've taken an image, we've gone and critiqued it within a role. And now what we're doing is we're saying, go and research all the good stuff of the things that we could do to solve the problem. So we have 2 sides of the coin. So it's starting to restructure the approach. So we go back over. Now, what we can also do, now we could generate this. We could say, if you were going to survey students about this space, you could actually get the AI to come in and say, you know, I think this is crap for whatever reason. But let's say we actually went and did a real survey. And so I've got a survey here, and I've got kind of this crappy spreadsheet. You've kind of got the students in here, the dates submitted. And it's kind of all a bit of a mess because we've had maybe some volunteers who have gone and gathered the data. So let's look at how we can clean up this data, and we can start to get some insights out of this data to add into our report about how we would approach the facilities upgrade. So what we'll do is we'll grab that survey data, we'll put it here, and then what we'll say is, I work at RMIT University. We have a building transformation proposal for the space. Again, do you see how I've referenced the space? So it can correlate from the first question to the second question. as an underutilized circulation space. This spreadsheet is the raw export of 300 student survey responses about the space. It is messy, mixed date formats, satisfaction recorded as numbers, inconsistent program names. The proposal goes to property services who will fund at most one intervention. So I need to know the one problem worth solving. The tasks, I want you to clean the data, standardize the satisfaction to a 1 to 5 scale, dedupe it, note that you've had to fix any rows you excluded, give me the headline stats, chart the satisfaction distribution, the top 8 themes as free text comments, and tell me the most important decision relevant insight in this data. Okay, so you could actually use AI to write you a prompt based on the data, but this is kind of like a prompt that a typical prompt you could use. So we'll run that on the survey data. So we've uploaded our image. We've got what's negative about it, just objectively from the view. We've got something going off and working out what's good. Now we're actually going to get some real data from some humans to kind of give us some feedback that will help us build our case. Because as you know, when you're trying to get money to do some sort of works, you've actually got to have an evidence base to justify it. So this is a way of doing that. And so this is a really cool thing about prompt engineering. You kind of have to work out what the end state is and then what all the lenses are. But if you can do them all independently. So each of these tasks is completely different, but at the end, you'll see how I can snap them all together into one deliverable. And you can also do this for land use stuff, council interventions. Someone wants to build someone wants to build a new sewage farm next to the kindergarten. You could use a similar technique.
Actually, I want to build a wall in my carport, and I don't know what material to use. I might use it for that.
Yeah, you could take photos of it and ask what you could do, what materials. It knows all of that stuff. So
yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I think this one's super useful. Even if you've got like a bedroom and you're saying, I want this to be my home office, what could I aesthetically do? You can come up with some pretty good ideas. This one's actually doing a fair bit of work because there's 300 lines in that file.
Mm.
Do you use ChatGPT to make presentations? Like if you had that file and you want to present it, do you use it to actually like create presentations, or do you do it elsewhere?
I can, yeah. I can't show you at the moment because I'm more of a Claude guy. So I pay for the more powerful version of that. I've got the $20 ChatGPT. I find ChatGPT for coding a lot less accurate, but for just the kind of writing and humor and stuff like that, I find it really good. So I sort of have this for my social media. I find this is the best for non-serious stuff.
So what's the difference with the free chat and the $20 one?
You just get a lot more, Bruce. Like it just has a lot more power and it doesn't like run out after 3 prompts. And I mean, it's sort of like this is sort of moving into like a side profession for me. So, I'm sort of investing. Let's say I'm making more off AI than I'm spending. So I'm okay to spend it. But I find, I think Claude Max and then just a ChatGPT is a good mix. So I've created this spreadsheet. So look what that's done. So we had that crappy sheet. Now I've actually created, and I might just download this so you can see it. I don't actually have Excel, so I think this is a little bit shitty in format, just mainly because it's Excel on numbers.
Yeah.
It would probably be neater, but you can kind of like, it's gone off and done a whole bunch of analysis. It's given me some clean data. It's got my cleaning logs, so I can see what's happened, and it's worked out who's talking about what and what the percentages are. But again, it doesn't really matter what's in there. I mean, you can sit and analyze that till the cows come home. At the end of the day, you kind of want to make a justification to upgrade the space. So think about that as like context. It's just more context to the window to make a decision. So we'll close that down. The next
quick question, Tim. Do you go back and double check key decision, like key facts? Like what's your like quality assurance process to make sure that the information extracted is actually accurate, or does it do it pretty accurately? So you just leave
if I was doing it professionally or seriously, I would 100% do it really carefully. But it depends on the accuracy I need. Like it's kind of like significant figures in science. You know, if I just directionally want to know, you know, what are the top issues or trends affecting, or the next prompt is what time of day is the biggest issue, and it comes back and it's very definitive. As long as I can get line of sight through and I can see that, yeah, it hasn't sort of made a mistake of calculation, as long as I can sort of see the source, I'm fine. And I think AI, yeah, we've been kind of trained classically to, you know, be accurate at every single point. Whereas I think AI gives you the opportunity, because it's so fast, you get the opportunity to kind of iterate and test. So you might say, well, I'm going to take this hypothesis and I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to produce my report. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and validate it. So I might take the report and then compare it to the source data and go, is there anything in this report that's inaccurate compared to whatever? Go and figure that out. So you can kind of like check different ways. So that's the way I think about it. So it's written my kind of, you know, metric view. Now, another thing that would be interesting is there's this insight around lunchtime landing. So, you know, lots of stuff in the data is around, you know, table seating, lunchtime. So we're seeing that. So if I just do a little follow-up prompt and I say, dig into when. Now it's already given me that answer, but we'll just dig into that. So what this is doing is this is kind of the example Jonathan was talking about, the quality assurance. So, you know, the data's saying when. So if you do a follow-up and you say, hey, can you dig into that? Can you actually, you know, analyze the actual data and give me some responses so that you can get more confidence of the outcome? Okay, so of the 116 who stay, the pattern is extraordinarily concentrated. So when they use the space, it's around that lunch midday. So that's super important in a space discussion. If people are going there for lunch, that's going to influence what you would do with the space. Makes sense. And what are they doing? They're waiting there. So the vast majority of them, oh no, sorry, they're eating their lunch.
Eating lunch, yeah.
Yeah, so they go
90 of them.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, it's just, that's the data I've got. Okay, cool. All right, so what would we do? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to write a bit of a structure. So if you're going to write a report, you've actually got to have some structure to present the data back to the people. Now, at the moment, we've got like all these files all over the place, all in these different structures. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and hone it down. So we're going to transform this analysis into the following structure. What the data says about the space, a one-liner finding, the numbers, the moments that matter, the 2 to 3 sentences on that lunchtime pattern, and in their words. So we're going to put the quotes and what that means for the design. Okay. That is kind of like, I'm trying to get the essence of what those people are saying in the data so as that we know the brief of what we're trying to build to. So only 116 stay in the space rather than walk through. It's about 40%. 78% use it around lunch or midday. And 90 of 91 report that they're eating or having lunch. So the moment that matters, the space reaches its royal peak around lunchtime when the students stop between classes to eat, wait, or shelter. The behavior is already there. So what's missing is the basic infrastructure to support it. And then we've got, in their own words, there's nowhere to sit. This sucks. The stairs are the unofficial lunch spot, laugh out loud. Okay? So that's kind of neat. Now, what we can also do is we can sum up this piece of analysis by creating a workbook in, say, Excel with 3 summary tabs. So summary, the headline stats, the charts, and the clean data. So we'll give it a name. And so this is how we would create a file. Now, obviously, this file is going to be in a different structure to the original data. But if we were going to present something to the board, you'd want to actually think through what structure you want that source document to be in. And I think this would go to Jonathan's question of quality. So obviously, if you get this right, you're going to have a structured document. You can trace it back. And if you wanted to, you could say, hey, can we trace this back? So here we go. So we have a look at this sheet. So we've got the key metrics. We've got the charts of what's going on and what they're talking about. And then we've got the clean data. So if you go through and check this, it should be right. It's all written with code. So I think it most likely is going to be right. It's definitely going to be directionally right. So, but that's, we've gone from something really rough to, some sort of deliverable we could hand in at the end. Okay. Now, based on all this information, we want to use a principle called Minto. So what we want to do is we want to have a vision statement. Then we want that vision statement to the audiences. And then we want to create our template and we want them to flow down. So it's kind of like answer, who's going to get value, that's the stakeholder analysis, to the template for the report. So this is for creating the vision for this space. So we sort of created the space, we analyzed the space, we looked at the research of what's good. Now we've gone and we've done the analysis of what objectively people want with the space. And now what we're going to do is we can create a vision for the space. So what we do, I think this is really important in prompt engineering. Like, if you can think through what you're trying to get to and think of those building blocks, you can kind of like write down all the pieces of analysis you'd need to put in the report, and then you bring it together. So we basically tell it what we want for the space, built on data insight. This is where they go to get lunch and know where to land. We want it to only be 60 words. We want to count them and show the count. Now that's a good trick because obviously generative systems just blurble on. So give it some hard constraint. We're going to ban words. These are things we don't want. So vibrant, hub, activate, synergy, all those bullshit words, get rid of them. No exclamation marks written in plain Australian English. Must be one specific physical buildable thing. Okay.
You've given it a pretty tight parameters, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah, so you got to think about AI as like it's a transformer that you have the controls on the inputs and the outputs and the process in the middle.
Mm.
And if you're precise, you will get precise answers. I see so many people with AI and they treat it like a search engine and it just comes up with a bunch of shit. If you're doing that, you're not really getting the benefit, I don't think. You're just generating slop.
Mm.
So in this case, we transform the space into a simple lunchtime landing where students can sit, eat, and wait between classes without blocking circulation. A continuous fixed table bench with accessible tables will give existing lunchtime activity a proper home, supported by better lighting, clear paths, and durable finishes that are easy to maintain.
Mm.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
So what we're going to do now is we're just going to write the pitch. So if we were going to pitch this, we're going to pitch the concept, 80 words each, to the students, to the faculty's director, and to the alumni donors. So the alumni donors might be, come and build this space for us and you can fund it. The facility directors it's very low maintenance. It's not going to cost. It's durable. And to the students, it's kind of, this is a great, new facility that they can use. But keep the underlying idea identical in all three. The point is the language is not the message. So we're going to the utility. To the students, you already used this spot for lunch. The problem is there's nowhere to sit, eat, or wait without ending up on the floor of the stairs. The plan is simple. Add some fixed timber benches, accessible tables, better lighting. Nothing over-designed, nothing pretending to be a study centre, just a comfortable, practical place to land. To the facilities director, the proposal addresses the existing use pattern with a tightly scoped intervention, fixed commercial grade bench seatings, accessible tables, improved lighting, and protected circulation clearance. Blah blah blah. And to the alumni donors, this is where the kids sit. You'd really help them out if you sorted this out for us. Okay, yeah. So then what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, what would we put in a report to council? Consolidate everything we've had so far into a design brief template below. Follow it exactly, same headlines, same order, respect every word limit. Where we have no information yet, write TBC rather than inventing. Design brief, the space. So we have a title, the case for change, the current state, the evidence, the vision, the design principles, the scope, what's in scope, out of scope, the users and audiences, the constraints and dependencies, success measures, and any open questions. Okay. So now we're creating essentially like the spine of our report. Now, if you wanted to, you could go and say, hey, if I wanted to write a report, what would I write? But I've just, for brevity, I've written one for us. So yeah, so it's an underutilized space. It's clean. It's visibly neglected. We've got the evidence. So we've got 300 results, the percentages of students doing what. We've got the vision. We've got the design principles. We've got what's in scope, the out of scope, the primary audiences, any constraints and dependencies, success measures, and open questions. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we actually want to test ourselves. So in any consulting engagement, we will always test it with what we call stakeholder analysis. We'll sit and say, well, who's going to back this and who's not going to like it? So what we've done here is I'm going to simulate that with AI. Now, if I knew the people in the organization and I kind of had a read on what they might say, or if I know from survey results, we can kind of, and this is in prompt engineering, looking at something from different perspectives.
Yeah.
Okay, so we convene a review panel of 3 people. We have a Graham, a facilities manager, 25 years at the university. He's watched 3 transformations get built and die. He cares about cleaning contracts, vandalism, and who pays for maintenance. We all know that guy, right?
Yep.
Then you got Priya, a second-year student. She loves the idea, but knows exactly what students actually do versus what the planners think they do. And we've got Marcus, an accessibility advocate who uses a wheelchair, and he won't accept compliance minimal thinking. Okay, so you could write out all the different groups within an organization, what you think they're going to think, just in terms of safety and compliance and cost and blah, blah, blah. And so what we're going to do is we're going to raise their objections. We're going to guess what their objections are. I like that this isn't trying to become another student experience precinct. I've seen 3 versions of this movie, blah, blah, blah. My first objective is the timber-looking bench. I actually want material and maintenance regime specified before the design commitment. Food gets spilled, bags scrape over it. People put their feet on it. Someone will ride on it. If it can't survive daily cleaning abuse, it doesn't get in, okay? This is important, right? Because these are the things that are going to stop your project. So we've got this kind of interview, and they just go on and on and on and whinge and complain. Okay, so we've got that data now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a budget for it. So based on what we're trying to build, we're going to think step by step and show all the workings, itemize the elements, state the unit cost assumptions for each, flag which assumptions are weakest, some are low, likely, high range, and add a contingency. Use Australian commercial fit-out rates and search the web for sanity. So what I want you to do is, so you're basically saying to the agent, go off and search the web and tell us what this should cost. And hopefully that'll go off and work that out for me. So we'll let this work. And then the final step is you got to think like a project manager. So if you were going to build out a project like this, you got to think about the steps that you would go through to implement it. So there might be procurement, there might be a design, you might have to sign that off. There's going to be notification, there's going to be a build phase, there's going to be a sign over, a handover, whatever the building rules say. But AI is also very good at costing. So it can go off and do research, even in particular markets, because it'll just go find a bill of materials, it'll find some brands, it'll cross-calibrate, it'll work out something. Now, you've obviously got to go and check all of this, but it can kind of give you a rough order of magnitude.
So could it, if you had a commercial building and you put in a fair bit of detail about its size and some of the materials and all that, you could work out a replacement value for the building for insurance? You've got to do it yourself I've got a fair clue, but it would help you work out whether you're close or not, wouldn't it?
Look, I always say, Bruce, you need domain knowledge in anything. So I never just trust AI, but I think you'd find if you were someone who knew building and you were to work with it, I think you could probably, it could help you do it a lot faster.
Yeah.
So this from the image has said we need 12 linear meters of fixed commercial grade bench seating, 4 accessible eating tables, 14 replacement LED buttons, 8 general PowerPoints, 100 square meters of wall associated painted surface, 90 meters of concrete floor, clean and resealed, 4 wayfinding signs, 2 commercial bin stations, 3 planters. Okay. And then it's gone through and it's said all the different things and what the unit costs would be in a range and what its confidence is.
I'll just let the dogs hang on.
So this is why Australia's cooked, because it's going to cost us somewhere between 88 and 202,000, which would obviously depend on the quality and etc. But that doesn't seem too ridiculous to me.
So it's costed that up.
Yep. Yeah, it's costed it up. It's got the construction and all the bits and pieces. Now, again, you have to go check it, but it'd be a good starting place.
Start.
Yeah. Really, really good start. Now, if I wanted to, I could put that in a spreadsheet. I won't at the moment, but I could put that in a spreadsheet so that I can start, stress testing that and going and actually getting real quotes, etc. And I could even say, go and do some lead gen for me and find me the best builders in Melbourne that could potentially do this kind of work. So that could be another thing I could do. But so once I've got the budget, then we do, the project manager thing, and we say, break the delivery of this project into 6 numbered work streams from approval to opening day for each name, owner, the role, duration, dependencies, and the one risk most likely to derail it. So 1 line for each. This is a map, not a plan. But again, once we've got this map, then if you wanted to, you could iterate this out. So approval and funding, site verification and compliance, detailed design documentation, procurement and contractor appointment, construction, installation, commissioning and opening. Makes sense, right? That's cool. Now, what I'm going to do is that original photograph that we downloaded, I think it was this one. I'm going to put this back in the chart. Now, this is pretty wild because that was our photograph.
Yep.
Then what we're going to do is we're going to reimagine it according to the specification that we've spoken about. So we say, reimagine this exact space as photorealistically as possible, implementing our concept, keep the same camera angle, the same architectural bones, but transfer it per the design brief. The lunch landing concept, warm materials, real seating and tables, greenery and better lighting. It should be recognizably the same place transformed. Late morning light.
Oh, that's unreal.
And that is going to take into context everything that everyone said, the design, the materials. So it's kind of going to feed all that into the model, and it's going to go, well, what do I need to do here? And it's going to use its model to then intricately break everything down. So it's designing the renovation. So it's probably writing prompts of what it needs to look like. And then it should hopefully spit out what it should look like. Now, this obviously used to be done by architects, graphic designers, etc.
What were those other people who used to do costing? Quantity surveyors.
Yeah, well, they're going to be up against it as well.
Mm.
There you go.
Yeah, look at that.
So, and then if I wanted to, if I then wanted to do something glossy for a brochure, we might show it alive, 1 p.m. on a Tuesday with students eating their lunch, someone walking alone by a window, natural and unposed, the same scene otherwise. Okay, so this might be for the...
Yeah, for the front of the book, front of the proposal.
Yep, front of the proposal.
It just never ceases to amaze you, does it?
No, and like this is just this is just a $20 ChatGPT. So
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
if you're not a power user, like
No, you can do this.
yeah. And there's nothing. I mean, I've pre-written the prompts because if I had to type them out, it would just it'd take 45 minutes. But it kind of gives you now. What I'm going to do is once I've got all these images, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a prompt that brings this all together.
Yep.
Do you ever use Higgsfield or Seed Dance, Tim?
Like I have, but I just find it's like another license that I don't. Yeah, like if I was doing something power user, I would, but I've got enough licenses. I spend a lot on AI, so I'm I find like I can use Grok Imagine, Google Neo Banana is really good, and I've got this now.
Oh.
So so this is good, and so it fills the brief. Students want to have lunch in there. It can't impede the walkway. They put in some new lighting, and it looks much better than before. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring this all together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you're the lead consultant assembling the capital works proposal for the client. Everything in this conversation, the photo audit, the survey analysis, the vision, the design brief, the panel amendments, the budget, the 6 work streams, and the site of research evidence. This goes to the property services group who fund 1 intervention per year and read it critically. Assemble it all into a single self-contained interactive HTML file, 1 file, no external dependencies, opens offline in a browser. In order, you want a hero section with the problem, what the data says, the concept, the panel change, 3 amendments, the evidence, the investment, and the close, the donor frame paragraph. Clean, modern design in a right format. The total reading in under 6 minutes. Every claim traceable to our data or a citation, ban words still applies. Written for a time-poor decision maker who has rejected proposals like this before. Produce it as a HTML file for download and we'll review and refine from there. Okay, so again, this is like writing to an intern. I've got an intern, the person in the building services. I've just written exactly what I want them to do. The more prescriptive you are, the better it's going to be. The one thing I didn't do was I didn't feed in my research to see if that would influence it.
Yeah.
I'll generate a report and then I'll test it against my research to see if there's anything else it would change.
Apparently there's like 7,000 data centers in America now.
Yeah.
I don't know how true that is.
It depends on how you define a data center. Like most companies have a data center. Like
Yeah.
comes with a data center.
I don't know. I think it's more sort of like bigger independent things, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, they're certainly not all they're not all Amazon and stuff.
No.
There's lots of data centers around the world. I mean,
Yeah.
That's how economy runs. Everything's digital now.
Yeah.
So this is doing a lot of work because this is going through and reading absolutely everything.
Yep.
What's your AI stack, Tim? Like, what do you use most frequently? Like you mentioned, Claude.
My big dog at the moment, the one I like the best is Claude Max,
Mm-hmm.
but I also have X Premium Plus that includes Super Grok, and Super Grok gets me Grok Build. I would actually love his Super Heavy, but it's too expensive. It's like $500 a month. It's ridiculous. But Grok is like, they've just released models that are Opus quality. But the good thing is I can code with both of those models. So that gives me like a massive amount of tokens a month. And if you're on the consumer plans, they give you more than if you're buying them direct. So it's very good value to do it that way. And I used to have Replit. I still do actually, but it was on an annual subscription. So Replit, I'm phasing out, and I'm phasing in Cursor. So Cursor is again Musk's, and it's got all his models in there. And I probably wouldn't have that on every month, but I like to have it when I'm doing lots of coding, because you kind of run out of one, so you just switch over, because you get a certain amount a week. So rather than going up to the bigger plan, I can usually get by with 2 or 3. But Cursor is a good IDE as well, so it gives you other functionality. And then I have Gemini Workspace as well, but that's only because I've got an email with Google. My business emails through Google, so I've got that for basically, because I've got that. And then ChatGPT, probably had it 3 months out of a year. Like, I just turn it on and off. Usually when new stuff comes out, it's usually always the one I consolidate or get rid of. Yeah, so Gemini I'm getting for free. ChatGPT I am paying for. Claude is my power use. Grok Premium is like, I already have X because I love X. I hate the ads on it. So yeah. So
What does Cursor give you that Claude Max doesn't?
It's a toy, really. It's just another way of doing it. It's different models. I like learning about the stuff. So yeah, not much. So if you just wanted one model, I would just get Claude Max. You could literally survive with that.
Because I use the $200 ChatGPT version.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's more generous with the tokens and more efficient. Do you feel like the max plan on Claude gives you enough sort of bandwidth?
Yeah, I do. Particularly if you change the model. The Fable model is super expensive in token consumption, but its accuracy is just unbelievable. So you end up kind of spending less because it just does shit like once. And I just find with coding, it's just way more accurate than ChatGPT. And recent people have done tests between Codex and Claude. Claude does the jobs way faster. So, and I've lived it. Like I'm literally coding all the time with AI, and I just find Claude. Like I spent most of this weekend coding on Grok, and then Fable like fixed all the errors like in one prompt basically. So it's the big dog at the moment, but I think Elon's catching up.
Yeah. What do you think of the ChatGPT Soul versus Fable? Is Fable still a lot stronger?
Fable's definitely stronger. Yep.
Yeah, right.
So this is our report. So let me just download this so I can. Something wrong with this. Why isn't that? I'll just pull over the downloads. Here we go. Okay. So it's a useful floor area, almost no human use. This is a photograph of it. It's got a reference, existing condition. The problems with it, that was drawn out when we said, what are the problems? Corridor has daylight, width, and foot traffic. the peak use is lunch, not study. So we've gone and pulled in all of our data, and we've got quotes. So what's our proposal? A proper place to land for 45 minutes. So we want to design the existing behavior, and then this is kind of like what we're going to do to it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So it does actually look good.
Does, doesn't it? Looks heaps better.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know if that's 300 grand, but we'll go with that. It probably is 300 grand because you know what it's like. So this is like what it looks like at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. So that would be the time of day when, you know, people would be there having lunch. And so the light we can even shift. So these are some of the things that we changed. Support the use case, do not overclaim the outcome. Yeah, so that's bad. Like we wouldn't put that in there. That's actually part of the prompt engineering, so that's an error. So student use informal settings as destinations, design intent went wrong, blah, blah, blah. So I think this has actually gone and done some research. Remember I said make it research-based? So students use informal settings as destination, design intent can go wrong. So it's actually tried to go off and do some stuff for me, which... Oh, no, that is right. That is right, because we asked it to go and support the use case. So that's kind of, yeah, we just didn't feed that in. So it's kind of, so the AI has kind of done it anyway. Like that's what we should have done. But we didn't feed it in. We've got the budget. So we've got all of the things that we're going to do and the cost ranges and our confidence, which is good to quote. So we're sort of at 135, and that's probably more realistic. And then we've got these cost challenges. And we've got our 6 work streams. So obviously, if you're going to the board, you'd want to say, what are the streams that we're going to track to? And then for the person that might be funding it, we actually give it a legacy. You know, we might have it, if a donor gives us money for this, we'll attach a donor name to it and represent a practical legacy for student experience. And that's got all the references which we asked for.
I missed it when you put the prompt, but did you ask it to give the RMIT colors?
I did, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So obviously we've called it the space. So that's what it's calling it. Yeah, that's sort of like, that's full stack. So when I do work with AI, that's the kind of level I'm thinking to be able to create outputs or documents. You don't think of it just in one. You wouldn't say, oh, look, here's a space. Can you go off and write me a report on what I could do with it? You know, it would just come back with a bunch of text. And it would be crappy and it wouldn't be structured and the analysis wouldn't be there and you wouldn't think of it through all the right lenses. So what you got to kind of do is you got to kind of work backwards to what you want and then work out the analysis you can do all the way through. But I think this, like if I just self-critique myself, like if I said, what am I going to do with that space without actually changing the space, that's probably a reasonable.
Pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Actually, excellent.
And so I think in the future, people will probably, you know, everyone kind of writes a spreadsheet, a Word document, a PowerPoint, 3 different things, and they spend forever drafting them all, and they do all this analysis. And I'm like, we've been on this call for 1 hour. I've probably got something that's solid. And you know what? I could put this up and I could pitch it. Everyone could say, oh, look, those tables look a bit shitty. Can we get some better tables? Or, you know, what else could we do? It's hard with this because you got these pillars, you know, like you can't really do much more with the space. But you could actually have a meeting about it, about the proposal. You could record the meeting, get everyone runs commentary, and then feed it back in and say, hey, how can we improve this?
I mean, really, that would have taken, what, 2 or 3 days to do normally if you did it everything manually?
Yeah.
2 days, would it? Like, pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, you're always the quality controller of what's coming out. But if you can do each step 10 times faster, you actually have more time to kind of consult and go round and round and round until you can get something that's really awesome.
As an extrapolation of this, you probably put a lot more thought into it, but what do you think of the direction of like consulting services like, you know, BCG and McKinsey? Because a lot of what they do is just like this times 10. Do you think in sort of the near future it'll become obsolete?
No, I don't, but I'll explain what I think's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So BCG and McKinsey and all of those firms, I used to work for the Big Four. They sold expertise, but I would say that the value of that expertise has been going down for the last 25 years. I mean, it was probably like 2006 when I started, but it was already on a downward trajectory when I started then. And I think it's really computers. Like, they used to have, you know, unique methodologies. You had consolidation of corporates. You had the introduction of information technology. And so you needed people with skills and methods to implement and do things. But all of that stuff has been commoditized. It's all been programmatically, and I think that created other problems, like ITIL and other methods created other problems because everything got too stuffy and bureaucratic. So you lost innovation. But I think we're moving to a world where it's not going to be your knowledge per se. It's actually going to be structured problem solving that the consultants have in spades. That is going to be an extremely powerful tool. But you're not going to be selling time. You're going to be selling agency. You're going to be selling outcomes. And so I think those firms, I just think the economics of the way those firms work is probably going to become less relevant. But having said that, if you gave a high-performing BCG consultant and they were also an AI expert, their ability to expand content, they would be able to crush entire teams of other people. So I think what will happen is, if you think of a consulting firm like a pyramid, the bottom people are going to have way more capability, so they're going to start eating the middle people. You're going to need less middle people, and if you need less middle people, the middle people are going to have greater spans of control, so they're going to start eating the top people. And so I think organizations are going to become a lot flatter. Experience will still matter, but if you think you can just sit there and be comfortable with this technology, it's who's going to be able to drive the agents the best, I think. But also the people that can kind of practically execute as well. Like, the value is not going to be the PowerPoint deck. The value is going to be actually building the bloody thing, doing all the work.
Because even in this example, right, a lot like what's carrying it is really the prompts, because you know how you want the end report to be structured. So you've taken us through sort of this like really thorough way of investigating this problem. And like, that's what McKinsey do. Like, there's literally like a book called The McKinsey Way, right? Like, once you understand their structured problem solving method and you break it down, I'd imagine it becomes a lot easier to replicate their results using AI.
The other wild thing is the McKinsey model. AI knows the McKinsey model. So you can just say, like, I could say, I want to reframe this report in the McKinsey style. Specifically say that, but I could. And so, or I could say, I want it to be a Minto structure, or, you know, whatever consulting framework you want. And so you're right in a way that those methodologies are now almost in the hands of imbeciles. The problem is the imbeciles don't know they exist.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's kind of this, like, that's why I think, like, I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old now, and I'm like, the number one thing I'll be teaching them is structured problem solving, communication, mathematics and coding, and AI. Because if they can master all of those realms, they can basically do anything. There's no limit to what they can achieve. So, and they'll do it way faster. So I'm not going to trust the education system, because the education system's like, oh, you're cheating on your exam, And it's like, it's not like, yes, there is an element you have to engage with content to learn it to become, foundational. But I would actually say applied learning now is going to be way more powerful than just rote learning, in a pedagogical order.
But how do you surface the unknown unknowns, like the things that you don't know? Because, like, as a trivial example, I was building this landing page and I hadn't known what the word was to make the page faster. But when I found out there's something called a lighthouse score, like, I literally used, the Go mode and ChatGPT to then go ahead and do it. So I didn't need to know how to do it. It's just I needed to know there was something called a lighthouse score. How do you know, if you've never been in consulting, how do you know about the McKinsey way? Is there a way you use, like, AI to surface areas that you don't know? I know it's a tough question.
Yeah, no, so I think of education like a tree. Down the bottom, you've got things like curiosity, imagination, problem solving, all that kind of stuff. And then the tree is like your literacy and numeracy. And then you go out onto the branches of science, arts, mathematics, humanities, whatever. In our system of education, we go out as far as we can onto the tree to become an expert at one thing. I think it would pay massive dividends if you spent time learning. So if you're going to try and solve a task, you have access to the tree now. So you can say, hey, I want to build a website. Write me a laundry list of everything I should know about writing a website, whether it be Google Analytics, whether it be the Lighthouse method, the performance of it, the technologies to use, You should do like a prompt and say, well, what are all of the things I should consider? And if I was going to review this as a website expert, what would I be looking for? And what you do is you'd say, when you build your website, you say, build the website, but before that, let's design it in a way that will meet all of these criteria. And then, so that radial thinking, it's like, if I'm going to write a report, who writes reports really well? Well, McKinsey writes reports. Well, what's their methodology? And then you're like, well, I want to persuade people, so I might go and use some Robert Cialdini. And that is why I wrote.
Yeah, I love your website.
This website, I literally tried to write down every tip I would give myself if I was 15 again. That was my. So I just went through, and the reason I like this is on my computer, I can connect to this via Notion. So I can sort of treat this as like a brain, and you can get AI to connect to your brain. So I think what's going to happen is people are going to start to build their own kind of like, it's almost like sub-brains. They got their little like notes about what, the way they think about problems. It could be philosophically, it could be the way you communicate, it could be your style of writing. I use it to write my posts on social media. Like I now have it trained as my style, so I can kind of, mimic myself, so that I've got something to then add that human flair over. But yeah, like I think these sheets, like you want to kind of build your own, but I think like sharing them and actually having a reference is super, super useful. But you've got to be willing. The problem is our education is like linear. We learn a piece of content and we get assessed on it, and then there's an outcome, and then we move on to the next thing. Whereas this is saying, no, like you've actually got to kind of learn a little bit about everything, and then you've got to learn how to span the tree.
Meta learning.
Yeah.
Figure out how to learn. Yeah. Because that's why I find these sessions really helpful, because like you surface things that I don't really think about, and then I could go away and sort of implement it in different ways. But I'm trying to explore how I can sort of fill in my blind spots, so to speak.
Yeah, so that's all I had for tonight.
Pretty interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Sanjeev, or is it? Sorry, Sanjana. Sorry. Yeah. So I would say, to sum it up, I would say think in layers and sit down with a pencil before you start prompting. And if you come up with kind of a lattice or a plan, you can create really, really nice reports really quickly just with inputs. But you kind of gotta kind of think about what are those angles, what are the lenses you need to think about. So it's kind of like topic, cost, communication, stakeholders, what you're actually doing. I'm sure there's a formula you could write for it. I wonder if I could do that actually. I wonder if I could just say, I'll just try it. Hang on. Shut that down. If I was to write a prompt to give to an advanced AI agent like Claude Code or Codex or Cowork to complete this analysis again, but structure it so it can work through it in stages as a pattern, so it doesn't have to be remembered, what would that prompt be intricately detailed?
Yeah, because I reckon like the deeper it goes, each like specialty would just have like a suite of prompts that they use, and they just fuel it. They just put it through the prompt pipeline, and then they get something like this at the end.
Yeah, so I just automated this job. So I did this kind of bottom up. I did it incrementally through. Now I've created a pattern. And if I gave that to an agent with all the data in the folders as described, it would go and do the work for me. Now this is kind of crazy because like this is someone's job.
Yeah.
And this is just ChatGPT. Like obviously this is going into like the Codex land, the bigger one, but like, yeah, I can automate that role. Pretty long, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's still typing.
If anyone wants that, let me know. I'll send it through. There you go. So yeah, that's just a $20 plan.
Yep.
You can go from nothing to. So, and Bruce, think about this for farming.
Yep.
So what am I doing with my cattle?
Yep.
What am I selling them for? What's the market price for everything? What's the seasonality? How many cattle do I get for how many whatever? What's my sell rate? What's my buy? Like you can build up an evidence base for your. It could be the same. How much fertilizer do I need, and what's my paddocks going to look like, and what's the optimal based on that region, and you know you could work out the same sort of problem. So if I just said
you know, the biggest thing with farming is not knowing what the future weather's going to be.
Yeah.
And like, let's be honest, no one really can predict it, but that is really what really, that is what really is the overlying factor. Because, you know, if you get a dry year, it's so different to a wet year. If you get too wet, you're in trouble as well. You know, it's sort of like, it's, yeah. You'd run your operation a lot differently if you really knew what was going to happen.
The same pattern works extremely well for farming, but the core question changes. What does the space do to what's the highest value, most resilient use of the property?
Yep.
For COBA, we'd have, you build the project memory. So the property baseline, the climate, the water, the land capability, the enterprise options, the carrying capacity, the infrastructure, the economics, the risk, the operating model, the development plan, and the outputs.
Yep.
The big difference, you need to identify the hard constraint first. Do not optimize until you identify the property's binding constraint. Reliable water, rainfall, pasture, labour fence.
Distance to market, annual grazing pressures, land clearing restrictions. They're all pretty on the spot, you know. Agent should know what runs outside is push over.
So you are a multidisciplinary agriculture advisor team.
Yep.
You're doing all this stuff. Your objective is not to recommend what the owner wants to farm. It's what they should, reliably, legally, and profitably.
Yep.
Then you give it a rule. So at every stage, distinguish the fact, the calculation, the assumption, and the decision. Understand the property. So total hectares, tanks, bores, blah, blah, solar, da. You might want to give, if aerial imagery maps or property plans are available, the agent should create spatial inventory so it can read spatial data, obviously.
Yep.
You can do the climate analysis. So you can go and download all of the data there.
Yep.
Most importantly, water situation.
Yep. God, that's amazing, isn't it?
Land capability. So all the other data. So you can build up a whole bunch of data.
Yep.
Then you screen it for different things. Then you give it criterion.
It even said goats.
Yeah. Could be a goat farmer, Bruce.
Yeah. All we sort of do. That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
So yeah, that might be something to work on. If you want that prompt, I'll email it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Tim. That'd be really good.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing, isn't it? Yeah, that'd be good if you'd do that.
Yep. I'll send that through now. And yeah, hope you learned something. And I'll hopefully see you next week.
Very good.
Cool. Thanks so much, Tim. Really
thanks, Tim.
Guys. Ciao.
See you, everybody. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye. Bye.